Chapter 4 A Man Sent by the Devil. For 3 years the man calling himself Roger Chillingworth had made his home in the town. Only Hester Prynne knew the secrets of his past life, which he had put behind him, but he held the lock and key to her silence and felt quite safe. His plans had changed. There were new, darker arrangements to make, new, secret things to do with his time. He had studied medicine and knew enough for other people to accept and welcome him as a doctor. Medical men were difficult to find in New England at that time. Soon after his arrival, he became friendly with Mr. Dimmesdale, and made the young man his religious guide. It was at this time, however, that the young priest's health began to fail. He grew thin and pale. His voice, though still rich and sweet, now had a sadness and tiredness about it, and sometimes, when he was alarmed by something, he would put his hand over his heart, and his eyes would fill with pain. The young priest was greatly respected in the town. People thought he was a selfless and deeply religious man. They worried that his long hours of study and hard work for the church were damaging his health. So they were pleased when Roger Chillingworth became a friend of the young man, and also offered to be his doctor. "God has sent this man to help our priest," they said. But Mr. Dimmesdale would not listen to his friends, and gently turned away all advice. "I need no medicine," he said. But how could he say so when each week his face became paler and thinner? His voice trembled more than before, and putting his hand over his heart became a habit. Was he tired of his work? Did he wish to die? The older priests put these questions to him and reminded him that refusing medical help, perhaps help sent by God, was a sin. Mr. Dimmesdale listened in silence and finally promised to take advice from the doctor. "Though, if God wished it," he said, "I would be happy to leave behind my work, my worries, and my sins, and be buried in my grave." So this was how the mysterious Roger Chillingworth became the medical adviser of Mr. Arthur Dimmesdale. The two men, one young and one old, began to spend much time together, walking along beside the sea or in the forest, often collecting plants to use for making medicines. Chillingworth watched and listened to his patient, asking questions carefully, digging deeper and deeper into the other man's thoughts and feelings. They spoke about public and private things, about health and religion, even about personal matters. But no secret, however much Chillingworth suspected there was one, ever came out of their discussions. After a time, at the suggestion of Roger Chillingworth, the friends of Mr. Dimmesdale arranged for the two men to live in the same house. They thought it was the best and most sensible arrangement, at least until Mr. Dimmesdale decided to marry some suitable young lady. Although for some reason they did not understand, the young man refused to even think about marriage. Now the good doctor could keep an even closer watch on their young friend's health. The house was next to the town's graveyard, and Mr. Dimmesdale had an apartment in the front of the building where he could enjoy the morning sun and where there was plenty of room for his many books. In rooms on the other side of the house, Roger Chillingworth arranged his papers and the special things needed for making medicines. However, not all the townspeople were happy. Many people suspected that the mysterious doctor was not all he pretended to be. One old man, who had come from London more than 30 years ago, was sure that Chillingworth had lived in that city using another name. Others spoke of the change in the man since he had come to live in the town. At first, his expression had been calm, thoughtful, the face of a man who spent his time studying. Now there was something ugly and evil in his face. Some people even believed that Chillingworth had been sent by the devil and was after the young priest's soul. Everyone, however, was confident that Mr. Dimmesdale would be the winner of this battle. As the months and years went by, the change in Roger Chillingworth grew greater. He had begun with the calmness of a judge, wanting only to know the truth. But as he continued, the need to know burned in him like a fever, and he dug into the priest's soul like a man searching for gold. And poor Mr. Dimmesdale, sick at heart, too afraid to call any man his friend, could not recognize an enemy either. One day he was in Chillingworth's room, looking out of the window at the graveyard opposite, while the older man was arranging some plants that he had collected. "Where did you get the plants with the dark leaves?" the priest asked Chillingworth. "From the graveyard," answered the other man. "I found them growing on a grave without a gravestone, or anything to tell me the dead man's name. Perhaps these black plants grew out of a heart that hid some terrible secret, one that was buried with him." "Perhaps the poor man wanted to tell it, but could not," said Mr. Dimmesdale. He was silent for a while, then went on. "Tell me, doctor, is my health any better since you began to take care of this poor, weak body of mine?" Before Chillingworth could answer, they heard a young child laughing. The sound came from the graveyard, and the priest looked down from the open window and saw Hester Prynne and little Pearl walking along the path. Pearl looked as beautiful as the day, but was behaving badly. She jumped from grave to grave, finally dancing on one of the larger graves until her mother called out to her. "Pearl, stop it! Behave yourself!" cried Hester Prynne. The girl stopped, but only to collect the purple flowers from a tall plant. She took a handful of them and fastened their needle-like edges to the scarlet letter on her mother's dress. Hester did not pull them off. Roger Chillingworth had joined Mr. Dimmesdale at the window. "That child has no respect for others," he said. "No idea of right or wrong. I saw her the other day throwing water at the governor himself. What, in heaven's name, is she? A child of the devil? Has she no kindliness in her?" "I do not know," replied Mr. Dimmesdale, quietly. The girl probably heard their voices. She looked up, laughed, then threw one of the purple flowers at Mr. Dimmesdale, and when the young priest jumped back with a little cry, she was delighted and laughed even louder. Hester Prynne also looked up at that moment, and all four of these persons now stared at each other silently, until the child laughed again and shouted, "Come away, mother! Come away, or that nasty old man up there will catch you. He has already caught the priest, but he won't catch little Pearl." And she pulled her mother away, then danced off between the graves. "There goes a woman," said Roger Chillingworth, after a pause, "who cannot hide her shame. It is there for all to see. But is Hester Prynne more or less miserable than people who keep their sinfulness hidden?" "I cannot answer for her," said Mr. Dimsdale, his face pale. There was a look of pain in her face which it hurt me to see, but I think it must be better for sinners to be free to show their pain, as this poor woman Hester does, than to cover it all up in their heart. There was another pause. Then the doctor said, "You asked a little while ago for my opinion on your health." "I did," said Mr. Dimsdale. "Speak freely. Do not be afraid to tell me the truth, whether it is good news or bad." "Your illness is a strange one," said Chillingworth, going back to his plants. "I find it difficult to understand. Let me ask you, as a friend as well as your doctor, have you told me everything? Is there anything you have not told me which might help me find the true reason for your illness?" "How can you ask?" replied the priest. "It would be stupid to call in a doctor and then hide the injury." Roger Chillingworth stared hard at the other man's face. "Yes, but the injury or evil we can see is often only half the problem," he said. "Sometimes it is the sickness of a man's soul that is the reason for his sick body. And then how can a doctor help his patient to get better unless his patient tells him what is troubling his soul?" "No, not to you," cried Mr. Dimsdale, his eyes suddenly wild and bright. "Only God can save a man whose sickness is a sickness of the soul. Let him do with me what he will. But who are you to involve yourself in this matter? Who are you to stand between a sufferer and his God?" And he ran angrily from the room. Roger Chillingworth smiled to himself. "Nothing is lost. We shall be friends again. But look how his passion takes hold of him. He has done a wild thing before now, this godly Mr. Dimsdale, in the hot passion of his heart." Not long afterwards, as expected, the young priest returned and apologized. He asked his friend to continue to care for him, and the doctor agreed to do so. A few days after this, Mr. Dimsdale falls asleep in his chair while reading in his study. Later, Roger Chillingworth comes into the room and sees that the other man is sleeping. He steps forward and pulls open the priest's shirt. After a short pause, he turns away, but with what a wild look of wonder, joy, and horror. Chapter 5. A Night on the Scaffold. After this discovery, Roger Chillingworth's plan slowly changed. Although he appeared calm and gentle, without passion, there was inside him a deep, slow-burning cruelty, an evil wish to bring a terrible revenge on his enemy. The priest's guilty sadness was a weapon in his merciless hands. Every day he played, like a cat with a mouse, with the fear and the shame lying hidden in the young man's soul. But on the outside he was still a friend, kindly and smiling. Arthur Dimmesdale could feel something evil watching him, but he did not know what it was. He looked with doubt and fear, at times even with hate, at the figure of the old doctor. Then he would punish himself for these unkind thoughts, blaming them on the guilt and shame eating away at his heart. And all this black trouble in his soul had made him more famous and popular as a priest than ever. To the people in his church, he seemed very close to God, a man full of gentleness and understanding of the pain and suffering of others. More than once, Mr. Dimmesdale prepared himself to speak to his people about the black secret of his soul. More than once he stood in front of them in church, took a deep breath, and told them what? He told them he was the worst of sinners, hateful, dishonest, unclean, an evil thing in the sight of God. But did they understand? No. They listened, and then told each other how lucky they were to have a man like this for their priest. Only a strong and godly man, they said, could speak so openly about his weaknesses. Arthur Dimmesdale could find no peace in his heart. He could not sleep at night, but would sit staring at his face in a mirror, hour after hour. Often, as he looked, his own face would be replaced by the accusing faces of others, dead friends from long ago, his white-bearded father, his mother, and worst of all, Hester Prynne, walking with little Pearl and pointing her finger first at the scarlet letter on her bosom and then at the priest's own chest. One sleepless summer night, 7 years from the time when Hester stood in public shame on the scaffold, the priest sat up suddenly in his chair. An idea had come to him. There might be a moment's peace in it, he said to himself, and softly went down the stairs and out into the night. He walked silently through the dark streets to the place of Hester Prynne's first hours of public shame, the scaffold. The priest went up the steps to the platform. It was midnight, and the town was asleep. Clouds covered the sky, and Mr. Dimmesdale could stand there until morning without fear of discovery. Why, then, was he here? What had made him come? Guilt? Shame? He did not know. But a feeling of great horror went through his whole body, and he cried out a terrible scream, which echoed through the night, from one house to another and to the hills beyond the town. "It is done," whispered the priest, covering his face with his hands. "The whole town will wake up and find me here." But the people of the town did not wake up, or, if they did, they imagined the cry was something which came from their dreams. When he heard no sounds of feet hurrying towards him, the young priest uncovered his eyes and looked around. At a window in Governor Bellingham's house, which was not far away, he saw the governor himself in his white nightshirt with a light in his hand. "He looks like a ghost," thought Mr. Dimsdale, and after a moment the light disappeared from the window. The priest became calmer. Then he noticed another light coming towards him along the street. As it came nearer, he saw that the person carrying it was the old priest, Mr. Wilson. "He has been praying at the bedside of some dying man," thought Mr. Dimsdale. And so he had. The old priest was now on his way home from the deathbed of Mr. Winthrop, who had just died. As Mr. Wilson passed by the scaffold, Mr. Dimsdale found it difficult not to speak. "Good evening to you, Father. Please come up and spend a pleasant hour with me." Good heavens! Had Mr. Dimsdale actually spoken? For one moment he believed that these words had passed his lips, but he had only imagined them. Mr. Wilson walked on, looking ahead, not once turning towards the platform. "I shall be too cold to move soon," Mr. Dimsdale thought. "I won't even be able to walk down the steps." Crazy pictures passed before his eyes. Someone will find me here in the early morning and will run around knocking on doors. Everyone will hurry out in their night clothes. Governor Bellingham, with his buttons undone, his sister, Mad Mistress Hibbins, staring with her wild eyes, and good Father Wilson, too, tired after spending half the night at a deathbed. Yes, everyone in the world will come running. And who will they see? They will see their priest, half frozen to death, covered with shame, and standing where Hester Prynne once stood. Now he began to laugh, loudly and wildly, unable to stop himself. Then he heard an answering laugh, a child's laugh, and his heart jumped. It was little Pearl. "Pearl!" he cried. "Little Pearl!" Then more softly, "Hester, Hester Prynne, are you there?" "Yes, it is me," Hester Prynne replied. She sounded surprised. "It is me and my little Pearl." "Where have you come from, Hester?" he asked. "From Mr. Winthrop's deathbed," she said. "I've measured him for his burial clothes, and I am now going home." "Come up here, Hester, you and little Pearl," said the priest. "You have both been here before, but I was not with you. Come up now, and all three of us shall stand together." Hester silently climbed up the steps and stood on the platform, holding Pearl's hand. The priest found and held the child's other hand, and immediately felt a warm, strong feeling in his heart, filling it with new life. Pearl looked up at the priest. "Will you stand here with Mother and me tomorrow, Mr. Dimsdale?" she whispered. "No, my little Pearl," answered the priest. The moment of passionate feeling had passed. Already he was trembling, and all his fear of public shame had returned. "I shall stand with you and your mother one day, but not tomorrow." "When?" Pearl asked. "What day?" She tried to pull her hand away from the priest's. "The great judgment day," he whispered. "Then and there your mother and I must stand together, but not before then, not in the daylight of this world." Before he had finished speaking, a light appeared, far and wide in the night sky. It was almost certainly caused by a meteor, and it lit up the whole street like day. And there stood the priest with his hand over his heart, and Hester Prynne with the scarlet letter on her bosom, and little Pearl standing between these two, looking up at the priest with a playful smile. She pointed across the street, but he put both his hands across his chest and looked up at the sky. However, he knew that little Pearl was pointing her finger at a man standing near the scaffold, Roger Chillingworth. Did the priest see him too? Or, in the strange, unearthly light, did he see only the evil smile, the hate behind the eyes, and believe that he was seeing the devil himself? The meteor disappeared as suddenly as it had appeared. Mr. Dimsdale, now trembling with terror, said, "Who is that man, Hester? Do you know him? I hate him, Hester." She remembered her promise and was silent. "Who is he? Who is he?" cried Mr. Dimsdale. "Can you do nothing for me? I have a horror of the man." "I can tell you who he is," said little Pearl. "Quickly then, child," said the priest. "Whisper to me." But the child whispered meaningless words into the priest's ear and laughed. "Why are you playing games with me?" said the priest. "You would not promise to hold my hand and my mother's hand here tomorrow," replied the child. The doctor was now by the platform. "Mr. Dimsdale," he said, "have you been walking in your sleep? Come, my dear friend, let me take you home." "How did you know I was here?" asked the priest, fearfully. "I did not know," said Chillingworth. "I have been with Mr. Winthrop, doing what little I could for a dying man. Now I am on my way home. Come with me, please, or you will not be well enough to do your work tomorrow. You should not study so hard, good sir." "I will go home with you," said Mr. Dimsdale, defeated, and, like someone waking up from an ugly dream, he followed the doctor back to their house. Chapter 6. Hester Meets the Enemy. That meeting with Mr. Dimsdale on the scaffold worried Hester Prynne greatly. She saw the young priest's weakness and his misery, and how close he was to madness. She heard the terror in his voice as he asked her for help, and she decided he had a right to all the help she could give him. Her position in the town was now rather different. In the 7 years since Pearl was born, Hester had worn the scarlet letter patiently and had led a hard-working and blameless life. People no longer hated her. Some even respected her. "She is always ready to give what she can to the poor," they said, "although she gets little thanks for the food she takes to them or the clothes she makes for them." And whenever a house was darkened by trouble, Hester was there with warm and kindly words and the offer of help. But when sunshine came again, she left without looking back or waiting for the grateful thanks of those who had been troubled. And afterwards, when she saw them in the street, she did not lift her head to speak to them, but put her finger on her scarlet letter of shame and passed by. Beneath her calmness, however, there had often been great loneliness and suffering. These had made her strong, and she now felt able to face the man who had once been her husband. It was clear to Hester that this man was the priest's secret enemy, playing the part of a friend and helper, and slowly but surely driving the priest into madness. In short, she decided to talk to Roger Chillingworth, and to do what she could to stop his cruel and evil revenge. She did not have long to wait. One afternoon, while walking with Pearl along the beach, she saw the old doctor with a basket in one hand and a stick in the other. He was collecting plants. "Go down to the water and play while I talk to this gentleman," Hester told her daughter. The child flew away like a bird, her small white feet making patterns in the wet sand at the edge of the sea. Her mother walked up to Roger Chillingworth. "I would like to speak to you," she said. "Ah, Mistress Hester," he answered. "I hear news of your good work from everyone I speak to. Only yesterday a magistrate whispered to me that the officers of the town were discussing whether the scarlet letter could now be taken off your bosom. You should do it at once, I told him. "It is not for some magistrate to take off this letter," Hester replied calmly. "When, if ever, I earn the right to be rid of it, it will fall off without anyone's help." "Wear it, then, if you want to," said Chillingworth. "It is a fine piece of needlework, and looks well on your bosom." While they spoke, Hester had been watching him closely and was full of wonder at the change she saw in him. He was no longer the calm, intelligent man she remembered. Now there was a cruel, searching look in his eyes, and a cold half-smile came and went on his face. 7 years of getting enjoyment from a cruel revenge had left the devil's mark on him. "His soul seems to be on fire," Hester thought. "I want to speak to you about Mr. Dimsdale," she said. "And what about him?" cried Roger Chillingworth. "Speak freely, and I will answer." "When we last spoke together, 7 years ago," Hester said, "you made me promise not to tell anyone that we once lived as husband and wife. I agreed to be silent because, as you said then, his position and his life were in your hands. But I see now that I was wrong to keep silent. Since that day, you have been beside him, sleeping and waking. You search his thoughts and his heart, and each day you cause him to die a living death. And it is I who have allowed this to happen." "What else can you do?" asked Chillingworth. "A word from me, and this man would be thrown from his church into a prison, and from there to the scaffold." "Perhaps that would be better," said Hester. "Haven't you had your revenge? Hasn't he suffered enough for his sins?" "No," answered the doctor. "Do you remember me, Hester, as I was 9 years ago? You thought I was cold, perhaps, but was I not kind and true, and a good friend to others?" "Yes," said Hester, "all that and more." "And what am I now?" he asked, and his face showed the evil that was in him. "A devil! And who made me this?" "It was me," said Hester, trembling. "Me, as much as he, So why didn't you punish me?" "You had the scarlet letter," he said. "That was enough revenge for me." He put his finger on it with a smile. "Now, what do you want to say about this man?" "I must tell him the truth about you," said Hester. "He must know who you are and why you are doing this to him. What the result will be, I do not know. Do what you want with him. But there is no good for him, no good for me, no good for you, no good for little Pearl. There is no path to guide any of us out of this misery." Roger Chillingworth stared at the tall, proud woman in front of him and heard the pain in her voice. Did he then remember the love he had once felt for her? "I am sorry for you," he said. "You were a good person, and you needed a better love than mine." "And I am sorry for you," said Hester, "and for the hate that has changed a wise and merciful man into a devil. Try to be human again. Forgive, and leave judgment to God." "That is not possible," replied the old man. "You planted the evil, and now its black flowers are growing. We cannot change the way things are." He turned and walked away, and a dark shadow seemed to follow him along the ground. Hester stared after him. "I hate the man," she whispered to herself. "How I wish I had never married him." She turned to look for her child. "Pearl, little Pearl, where are you?" The child had been busy while her mother had been talking. First she had played at the edge of the water. Then she had made little boats out of pieces of wood. Then, seeing some birds feeding on the beach, she had picked up some stones and thrown them until one little gray bird had flown away with a broken wing. For her last game, Pearl collected some grass and used it to make a letter A on her chest. "Will Mother ask me what it means?" she wondered. Then she heard her mother calling, and, moving as lightly as one of the little sea-birds, she appeared beside Hester and pointed her finger towards the letter A on her bosom. "My little Pearl," said Hester, after a moment's silence, "the green letter means nothing on your childish bosom. But do you know why your mother wears it?" "Oh, yes," said Pearl, smiling. "It is for the same reason that the priest puts his hand over his heart." "And what reason is that?" asked Hester. "I don't know," replied Pearl. "Mother, what does this scarlet letter mean? Why do you wear it on your bosom? And why does the priest keep his hand over his heart?" Hester stared down into her daughter's black eyes. What should she say? The truth? No. If that was the price of the child's understanding, she could not pay it. "Silly Pearl," she said. "There are many things in this world that a child must not ask about. What do I know about the priest's heart? And as for the scarlet letter, I wear it for its gold thread." It was the first time that Hester had lied about the letter, and the child did not stop asking the same questions. 2 or 3 times on the way home, several times at supper, and again the next morning, Pearl asked, "Mother, Mother, what does the scarlet letter mean? And why does the priest keep his hand over his heart? Stop it, Hester said, in a sharper voice than she had ever used before. Stop it, or I'll shut you in the dark cupboard.